Welcome everyone to Every Woman Empower's Chit Chat. And I am your host, Shauna J. Cerniak, the founder of Every Woman Empowered. And today I have alongside my co-hosts,
Johnny Gallardo, international artist and resident artist of Every Woman Empowered.
Neela Janu, certified laughter yoga instructor, founder of Let's Laugh Yeg, and happiness ambassador for Every Woman Empowered.
And our special guest today is the one, the only, the international comedian, Lars Callieou. Welcome, Lars.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the show, Lars. Now, Lars, I've heard that you've had quite the summer this past few months with COVID going on. You took it to a totally different level. What happened this summer?
Well, I was in Australia in March. I was supposed to be there for 3 months, and I got called home by our prime minister and isolated for a couple of weeks. Went 46 days without doing a live stand-up show. And in 17 years, I haven't had more than a week off. And the past 10 years, I probably haven't had more than 4 days off. And so they opened up outdoor gatherings. Alberta Health Services announced that they were opening up outdoor gatherings. And I mean, it was like a light bulb. I honestly was like, wait a minute, I could do comedy in backyards, and that would be within the regulations. So I put out on Twitter right at the end of April, if anybody wants a show in their backyard, I would bring a speaker and come do it. I got some interest, and then CTV heard about it, did a piece on it, and Chorus Radio put us national, and the Journal did a piece, and we ended up doing 162 shows in 5 months. And it was, I mean, I wasn't expecting that kind of response, and it was a blast. We really saw some really cool places.
No kidding. 162 shows. That is amazing. I know that you did my backyard, and it didn't come out very right. Yeah, we had you to come out, and I gotta say, you were phenomenal. Everyone that saw you loved you. It was a beautiful night for it. Couldn't ask for anything more, and it was exactly what we needed. Like, honestly, just to get together, with the social distancing and such, but to just laugh and feel like we had that little bit of normal again, and you brought that for us. So thank you so much. It was amazing.
Well, yeah, it's my pleasure. And I really didn't think of that as a byproduct of it when I came up with the idea. And people often give me credit for doing something, altruistic or something, bringing laughter to people. But I think that I get more from it than they do. I love performing so much. And I remember we were doing, before hockey started up at the beginning of August, we were doing 5 shows every single Saturday. And one Saturday we did 6 shows. And so I was doing about an hour of comedy on each show. So never in my career had I done 6 hours of comedy in a single day. And I mean, you really have to get up for it, and you really have to be able to deliver the same, show number 1 and show number 6. You really owe it to those people to perform. And people ask, were you tired? And I'm like, no, because that 46 days off gave me so much appreciation for performing in front of a live audience again, that the energy was there because of the gratitude. I just wanted to be there. And it was very easy for me to forget that you were getting something out of it as well. I really never thought of that. And I would leave there going, yeah, I got my fix. And the audience would go, I really needed that. And I'm like, oh, you guys needed that? Oh, I never even thought about you guys.
It's all about you, Lars.
Oh, that's so funny. So Lars, like, how old were you when you realized that you could make people laugh? And the second part of that is, how did you figure out you could make a living at this?
Oh, I still don't think you can make a living at comedy. There is not a day. I just had a nice chat with some students about this, and I said, every day I wake up, I've performed in 25 countries. I've worked with some of the most famous people in the world. Every day I wake up, I can't believe that this has been my job for 12 years. I've been doing comedy for 17 years, but it's been my job for like 11 or 12. I woke up this morning to book some shows and couldn't believe that I was a professional comedian now. So, I mean, I've been really blessed, and I make a good living, but I think that I'm in a dream. I think that I've gamed the system. It feels that way. So I was 6 years old when I first really started understanding jokes and how jokes worked and the response that they got. So from the time I was 6 till the time I was probably 18, I would collect street jokes. I would, my parents would get me joke books every year on my birthday and every year at Christmas. And so I just collected thousands and thousands and thousands of jokes. And I loved the wordplay and the misdirection, and I really enjoyed the response. So, I mean, I was, if I think back, I was 6 years old telling jokes, 10 years old telling jokes. And then one day I tried stand-up comedy, and then 5 years later, it was my job. And 12 years later, I'm talking to you wonderful people.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. And Lars, I think maybe something that people that maybe want to get into comedy holds them back is that the world just kind of seems like this very sensitive place where people are easily offended. So how do you handle that in your comedy?
Well, I'm very deliberate in that I don't want there to be victims in my material. So when I write a joke, if the joke, also in the audience. So one of the things that we, Shauna at her play and the shows she's seen me do is I'm very deliberate in that I include people in the show, but I don't pick on them. Sometimes they'll come up and go, "Hey, I love that you picked on me." And I know that it doesn't need to be explained, but I always kind of want to go, "No, I asked you where you were from because I've probably done a show in that town, and then I have a real story about that town. It's a truthful story. It's something that actually happened. And I don't make it up. I don't have to force it. You can embellish it a little, but so I want to include people without making them feel like they were picked on. The idea of, say there's an audience of 200, if 198 people are laughing at 2 people, those 2 people who were laughed at don't enjoy the show. They leave there going, "I don't want to see live comedy again." So for me, when I wrote jokes, I guess I always I didn't want there to be a victim of that material. Now, which is not to say I haven't written some jokes like that. So if I write a joke that would have a victim, and I feel it's a little too dark to fit what my vision of comedy would be, I'll call a friend of mine and I'll give them the joke. And most of the time they take it. They're well-written jokes. They hold up. They're mechanically sound and they have a good punchline. But I don't want it to feel like there's a great quote, and I've always kind of loved this. Comedy should afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. And so to simplify it, comedy should always punch up, not punch down. And so when it comes to, you don't want to make fun of the homeless or the disadvantaged or somebody that has been picked on their whole life. Don't pick on those people. You can make fun of the Kardashians and the Trump and the people who are comfortable, the king and queen. Like, you can make, basically, you should comfort the afflicted, make those people who have been afflicted their whole life, comfort them, and then afflict the comfortable, the people who are billionaires. Yeah, go ahead and make fun of Elon Musk. You're not going to hurt his feelings. He's worth $47 billion. You can make fun of Bill Gates, So I think that I've adhered to that, and it came from the type of comedy that my parents listened to growing up. It was very storytelling. It was, I really didn't get a chance to see the Eddie Murphys and stuff till much later. So I think I kind of always thought that comedy was supposed to be a little bit cleaner and a little more friendly, but it's, I respect a comedian that can do the dark material masterfully. There's Anthony Jeselnik and Sarah Silverman and some comedians that are just Doug Stanhope that are amazing at it. And they have a level of skill that's Picasso-esque. They're just really good at what they do.
Right.
Well, so what's something that's kind of kept you going on your journey through the hard times? Because I'm sure you still probably do get people haggling or heckling you in your shows, or at the beginning.
Well, I mean, as far as, I just love it. I mean, I can't. There's this. You live in this window. Any artist, anybody who does yoga especially, you're very present in that you live in this tiny window that's not even a full second long, like a half a second, a quarter of a second. So when you're doing yoga, a lot of times or painting or sculpting, doing comedy, dancing, whatever it is, gymnastics, you live in this window where you can't think about a problem you had earlier that day or something that you're worried about tomorrow. You have to be completely present. You know, there's a couple of yoga poses that I absolutely hate, like the twisting lunge. You should not be allowed to do that. I think that they should outlaw it. Also, chair pose, forget it. Anyway, so in those moments when you're doing those things, it makes everything fade away. So you just get to enjoy this moment now. You forget about your problems, and I forget that the audience enjoys that as well. For me, I'm on stage performing and hearing people laugh and enjoying the interaction. I forget that me enjoying that moment and living in that half a second, that makes it's peaceful. It's your happy place, for lack of a less cliched term. It's my happy place, and that's what the desire to be on stage, the pursuit of a microphone and an audience. That's all I've wanted, and the fact that people pay me for it is, like I said, I'm like, you guys know I would, like you feel like, yeah, cheat code, exactly. So that certainly keeps me going. And as far as hecklers, this is such a funny. When I was 1 year into comedy, there were two comedians that were the door guys. So there would often be bouncers or door guys or people that would intervene if somebody was heckling. There were two comedians where the door guys were told not to intervene because these comedians were so good at dealing with somebody who heckled that they were told not to, because the comedian's going to hurt this person's soul. And so I really, from that day, aspired to be one of those comedians that never needed to be rescued. And I love that, I was a house MC at the comic strip for many years, and I really had to interact. And, Sean has seen it multiple times. If somebody throws something up at the stage, I can usually take that and spin it as something hilarious, while at the same time, if necessary, shaming them a little, so they'll be embarrassed to the point where they're like, I'm not going to speak up again. And it teaches everybody else. They don't want to, they're like, yeah, I'm not trying that. The guy ended up looking like an idiot. And so I pride myself on being able to deal with that stuff, making it funny, and at the same time a little bit embarrassing for them, where they're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have. I was doing a show in Saskatchewan a couple of weeks ago, and this guy shouted up a couple of times, and I spent the entire show lighting that guy up. Like, I made him, everyone's like, oh, this guy looks like such a buffoon. And that's the goal, is to make it silly and fun and funny. I want him to understand, hey, this isn't, I've done this a few times before.
Exactly.
So I got a good question for you. If you could ask any comedian, live or dead, whatever questions about being a comedian and having that sit down with you, who would that be, and what kind of questions would you ask them?
Oh, that's a great question. I've actually had a chance to do that. I've sat there. One of my favorite things was, and it often circles around to this, so I hesitate because it really sounds like a big time name drop, and I feel like I don't want this to be a part of every podcast, so I hesitate. The last 3 tours of Canada that Joan Rivers did, I was her opening act. So I toured with Joan Rivers. I worked with her 5 times and toured with her 3 times. And sitting down with somebody like Joan Rivers, who was the fill-in host for The Tonight Show when Johnny Carson was there, and was in all kinds of movies and worked the red carpet at the Oscars for years. I mean, Joan Rivers pioneered the red carpet interviews. That was all her. It didn't exist before Joan Rivers. So when we would sit backstage and I would be talking comedy with Joan Rivers and how much she loved it, I had a chance to ask one of the greatest comedians in the history of comedy those exact questions. And I think that her being unapologetic, I mean, talk about somebody who pushed the envelope. This was somebody who offended people 2, 3, 4 times a year. She would have the entire world up in arms. And how unapologetic she was, while at the same time really truly loving comedy, respecting comedy. She loved it. And I wish, if I had a wish, it wouldn't be that I would get to sit down and talk to those comedians. I would wish that everybody had a chance to see Joan Rivers do sound check. That would be my wish, because we would come in at 5 o'clock. We would go into the big theater. We'd be there with the stage manager and the sound tech and the lighting tech, and so we would be there, and Joan would be telling them what she, okay, this is what I need done, and this is how I want my sound done, and this is where the lights are, and there's an orchestra, and she would have everybody doubled over laughing. She would have everybody just in stitches at sound check. And that's what I wish people could have seen, is because if you thought that she was just telling jokes that she was so funny off the cuff. And I think that the thing that I was most grateful for was that I got to see her once in Calgary. We were playing a venue and they didn't do any of the things that she had requested in her contract, and very deliberate reasons. For example, she wanted a cover for the baby grand piano that the piano player would be playing. And she asked for a cover because she got on top of the piano. Later in the show, they had somebody lift her on top of the piano and she stood on it. And she said, "Where's the cover for the piano?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, we don't worry about it. You can stand on it." And I watched Joan Rivers say to this group, if you guys don't care that a piece of equipment like that gets wrecked, you should quit entertainment. You should not be doing this job. You're bad at it. And so every single time that I got to work with her, I watched her be happy and silly and funny. And then once I got to watch her go up one side of them and down the other, she tore a strip off of those people and they were shaking in their boots. And to get to see somebody that was all business, as long as we all did our jobs, she was just the silliest person ever. For years, I saw her be silly and fun, but then once I saw her be all business. And I wish everybody could have known her in those moments, because you would have seen what a beautiful soul she was. And if your name was on all the promo, so she made sure if there was a billboard, it would be with special guest Lars Callieou. You would be on buses, you would be in the newspaper, and she made sure that the star on your dressing room was the same as the star on hers. It's amazing. So is there anybody who I'd want to really talk to? I think it'd be fun to sit down with Chris Rock. I think his connection to Eddie Murphy and then his connection to Dave Chappelle, the reverence they had for Richard Pryor. I think I would probably like to sit down and chat with Chris Rock. But most of the other comedians in the world, I've had an opportunity to like hang out at Just for Laughs with them and work with some of the greatest comedians on the planet. Like I feel like it's been the most charmed life possible.
I'm surprised your walls aren't inundated with pictures of you and all these comedians together.
Well, I don't take them. And there's so when I've had a chance to we're open for all these people, if my mom's at the show, I'll take a picture with my mom and the comedian. But I never wanted to be associated. I had this weird thing where I never wanted to be associated as the opening act. I want to be a headliner. And so if you gave me the choice between headlining your backyard for 15 people or opening for Joan Rivers to 2,000 people, I take the headlining gig 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. And so for whatever reason, I'm very OCD. I didn't realize it was a thing, but the idea of taking pictures with all these famous people spoke to me that I was okay with being the opening act. I want people to take pictures with me. I don't want pictures with the other people. So it was a somewhat deliberate choice, but honored to have worked with the people that I have.
Maybe you should have thought about it as them having a picture with you and how lucky they were to be associated with you, right? Interesting.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They're pretty good comedians.
That's cool. So now as you're going forward, Lars, tell me, what are your plans as we go into 2021? We're not too far from 2021. So what do you have planned coming up?
Well, so normally November and December is corporate Christmas parties. Normally we're just the whole calendar's filled with company Christmas parties, and you they fund a lot of the rest of your year. So with that not going on, I fear for the DJ companies. I fear for the musicians and comedians and hypnotists and magicians who did close-up magic and all these things. So I really have a big place in my heart and a real concern for those people. As far as me, I tour Australia for about 2.5 months, 3 months a year, and I start at the beginning of March. So more than anything in the world, I just want to go back to Australia. Everything, I was there for 11 days when I had to come home, and people had said, it's too bad that you went because, you spent $2,000 to get there and $2,000 to come home. It sucks that you're out this $4,000. And I'm like, nah, I am so grateful. Even though I was only there for 11 days, I'm so grateful that I got to go, because there was a lot of people that were on their way there for the Melbourne Comedy Festival, but I usually go 2 weeks earlier and play some other places around Australia. So I am praying that they open it up so that I can go and work Australia March, April, May again. That for me, I'm holding my breath. I am crossing my fingers. I really want to go back to Australia and just tour and see my friends and work with them and be in Australia. There's some great English speaking comedy clubs in Asia, you know, so that, you know, the comedy clubs in Canada have been really supportive if they're able to. Ontario just shut down for 28 days again, but you know, the clubs here. So I played Winnipeg, I've played the, you know, the club here in Edmonton. And so I've been booked at all the clubs in Canada, and they've been wonderful, and we've been blessed that way. But you know, gosh, I want to go back to Australia. A short answer, I just want to go back there.
Especially in March. I mean,
yeah, and you go annually every year,
Yeah,
just specifically for the Melbourne Festival. Comedy
yeah.
Fest.
So I started in 2015. So I asked a friend of mine, Marcus Ryan's his name. So look up Marcus Ryan. I believe his Instagram, Twitter. Hey, it's Marcus Ryan, Marcus, Marcus with a C. Marcus Ryan. Look him up. He's wonderfully funny. He's performed in 50 countries.
Wow.
He's just a really funny comedian, and I think one of the best storytellers I've ever seen. And so I reached out to him in 2014 and said, hey, if I went to Melbourne, would I be able to do time at the comedy festival? He put me in touch with some people, and so 2015, I just fell in love with it. I just absolutely, it's just like, it feels like you're in Canada, and the crowds are similar and the people are similar, and it's just awesome. And so each year after 2015, my tour grew by like a week, 10 days, a week, 10 days. And it just got longer and longer and longer until I was spending 3 months there. So we start in Perth, then we go to Tasmania, then we go to Melbourne, then we go to Darwin, and I've done Adelaide and Sydney. And so I just really, I mean, I don't even go for the weather. It's a nice bonus, but I love performing, and there's so much opportunity when those festivals were operating. And so I just went down and just worked my butt off for 3 months, and then spent 3 weeks, 4 weeks touring the English speaking comedy clubs in Asia. And I wish everybody could go, and I wish everybody could have gone before, because the people who have gone just go, yeah, it feels like you're in Canada. It's a similar, same sensibilities, you know, commercials look the same, the bars feel the same, the accent's different, but, and crossing the road, you feel suicidal half the time because you're so used to just looking to your left and then crossing the road. And I don't know how many times I've been like, no car's coming. And then they drive on the other side of the road. So you're stepping out in front of the guy. And I joke about it over there, where I just ask somebody to hold my hand. I'm like, hey, can I hold your hand while we cross the road? Because I don't know how to do this. Yeah. And here's you walk on the other side of the street as well.
Oh.
So if it's a busy road, you walk on the left side, and escalators, everything's backwards. So you spend the first 10 days just getting in people's way. Like if you're walking on a busy, you're just walking against everybody, and everybody's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm from Canada. Sorry, I don't know how to do this.
Typical Canadian.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right against traffic. I'm always just, I'm walking on the side that I'm used to walking on. So you learn, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I forget about this every time.
So Lars, what's something that no one else knows about you that you're going to reveal to us right now?
Well, I'm super OCD. I didn't realize that. I don't know if that's news, but I definitely, you know, I didn't realize until much later. There's a very funny comedian, Nicola Wilkinson's her name. So she was over here touring, her and her partner Mick were touring, and she left a pair of socks because we were touring Western Canada, and I had to get her back that pair of socks. Like if you leave a piece of Tupperware at my house, I have to get it back to you. Like I'll have it in my car for months, and like I'll be like, hey, here's that Tupperware. Here's your pair of socks you left in my place. And it's just this idea that I have to return things to people, and it can be you're like, why would you bring this to me? This is such a waste of time. But I didn't realize it's very much, you know, and it's given me a real appreciation for understanding that you're influenced by all these different things. Something
What's
that
weird,
nobody
though,
knows.
I gotta ask you though, how come you haven't returned my bra?
It's the only one that fits when I'm jogging on the treadmill.
Makes sense. Yes. Well,
Yeah,
if you want the matching bottoms, I can bring them over for you. I would pay money to see.
Something that nobody knows. Gosh, something that nobody knows. I wonder. I guess I've never shared this. I I really growing up, you know, my dad passed away in 2001, but was always just my favorite. Everything that my dad did, I just wanted to do. And I remember, you know, him driving when I was a kid, and I would always just sit there and just be mesmerized by him driving. And I would ask him all these questions, and he would always answer. He was always so patient and really happy to teach me things. And I remember him teaching me about driving, and I all the lessons that he's taught me about paying attention and how, you know, really anticipating things. And so I love driving, and my car, it's a 10-year-old car. It has 685,000 kilometers on it. So I put on between 80 and 100,000 kilometers a year.
What kind of car is that?
Volkswagen Jetta. Yeah.
Jetta.
And so
there's our sponsorship right there.
yeah. Volkswagen it's been really good to me. It's you know, I've done more than 100,000 kilometers in a year a few times. But my dad played chess. So the guy I was named after, his best friend was named Lars. He was from Sweden, and so I used to watch Lars and my dad play chess every day. And I remember standing at the edge of the table and just watching quietly. Every now and then sneaking a drink of my dad's Sprite, but other than that, I would just intently watch. And I taught myself how to play chess when I was 5, because I learned how the pieces moved, and I figured out how the game worked after just watching for probably like 6 months. I mean, I watched forever, and taught myself how to play chess. And then from the time I was 6 years old till the time I was 18, my dad never let me win, not once. And he was a pretty good chess player. And so over the course of my childhood, I became a pretty good chess player. So that's something I've never shared with anybody. Yeah, I love the game, and I've always loved the strategy. I'm a pretty good chess player. Is something I've never shared with anybody.
That's pretty cool. So, ladies, we got some last questions for Lars before we have to go.
I'm good.
Yeah, he answered mine.
Well, what about that ice cream question, Jenny? You always
yes, I have to ask you my famous ice cream question. If you were an ice cream, what flavor would you be and why? It's really essential.
Bubblegum.
Bubblegum.
Yeah, bubblegum. I think that there's flavor, but at the same time, lots of surprises. You know, I think that there's moments where you're like, oh yeah, and I get to chew gum at the same time too.
Yeah.
Is it good gum? No, definitely not. But
that's the first bubble gum we've ever had, eh, lady?
Yeah, it's our first bubble gum. So, Lars, where can we find you, and how do people get a hold of you if they want to book you for a show?
Well, if they're on Instagram or Twitter, first follow Marcus Ryan, but after you followed him, you can follow me. So it's extra, EXTRA, and then Lars. Actually, it's funny because I people go extra like XTRA. I'm like, no, like the word extra. And it was it was such a silly line from when I was probably 18 years old, where I go, my friends call me Lars, but my girlfriends call me Extra Lars. And what? You're single in your 40s? How did that happen?
Yeah.
So Instagram or Twitter, EXTRA Extra Lars, and I follow everybody back. So if you want to gain a follower, you just follow me on Instagram or Twitter, and then I'll follow you back, and then you can unfollow me. It'll be
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I wish you all the best. I hope that 2021 will bring you back to Australia. And thank you so much for being a part of our show. I truly appreciate it. And we're looking forward to seeing you soon on the stage. Take care, Lars. And thanks again. All the best, Lars. Bye.
Thanks, gang.
Thank you. Bye.